it's kind of encouraged me to ask those questions. And I think that's sort of this inspiration begets inspiration begets inspiration that we kind of send around the world. And so I think we always, if anything, you never tell anyone what to do or what works or doesn't work. But the only thing that I really would put a stamp on is like you got to ask yourself these questions and go deeper. And even if it is just reassurance that everything you're doing is right, that's good because now you're more confident in what you are doing. And if it's not, then you get to kind of start on whatever you want to be doing quicker.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy. With yours truly, Michael Kohan.
Holy moly, today's chat, wow. Taylor, what a mind. You can see that Taylor has a philosophical mind with a contagious viewpoint on life. He's introspective and radically honest. It was an absolute joy to have spoken with him. I'm still in awe. A few stories spring to mind, but one of them was hearing how when he was in his teens and he saw a billboard of himself in Times Square, while everyone around him was impressed that he achieved great success and was the big name on the show, he realized that external success was somehow never going to fill his cup in the longer term, and he began to ask some deep questions of himself to help find inner fulfillment and what really is important to him. This is fascinating to hear, especially at such a young age. I love that he's not afraid to ask the hard-hitting questions, which you'll soon hear about. It's a gem. I loved it. You'll love it. So let's get into it. Taylor Gray is an actor and writer. You might recognize him as Jedi Ezra Bridger from the incredibly popular Disney animated series Star Wars Rebels. He is starring in Sony Pictures film SNL 1975, playing the role of Al Franken, alongside Willem Dafoe, Dylan O'Brien, and J.K. Simmons, to name a few. The film is being directed by Jason Reitman and is based on real-life behind-the-scenes accounts of the opening night of Saturday Night Live. Taylor recently wrapped up the indie film Any Day Now, written and directed by Eric Aronson. He stars as the lead of the upcoming film High Expectations, opposite Kelsey Grammer. Prior to that, Taylor starred in the series In the Vault and recurred on Jenji Kohan's American Princess. He also starred opposite Amber Midthunder in Steve Pink's The Will. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about being a Jedi, working with Kevin Durant, why he travels so much, filling his cup, acting in his teens, Dave Filoni and Star Wars, mindset shifts, being an artist, writing, and asking deep, hard questions. Before we get into this epic chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kohan. That's Kohan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny and Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out at 3:30 Melbourne, Australian time, with the full video of the podcast to be released the following day. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's get into it. What was it like being better at basketball than Kevin Durant? You were better than Kevin Durant at basketball. What was that experience like that?
That experience was incredible. I mean, I would say not many people have had that opportunity, although Anthony Edwards this year during the playoffs might say that he's felt it the entire series. But no, I'm a KD fan through and through. He's so great, and he's an even better person, which says a lot because he's a hell of a basketball player. I mean, and maybe I am a little bit biased, but I think he's one of the best scorers we've ever seen in the NBA. And so the sort of full circle thing there is I grew up playing a lot of sports, and basketball was my number one sport. My dad was my coach through most of like growing up. And then in high school, I obviously had the high school coaches, and I played on the varsity team. And my junior year, I got a Nickelodeon show, so I had to leave school, and so I couldn't play anymore. And so I got my first year on varsity, but I was younger and I played like I came off the bench. And then my senior year, that's what I was looking forward to. I wasn't able to play, but I ended up getting, and I was really, really bummed. I ended up getting that movie Thunderstruck like 2 years later. And my
Yeah.
dad's like, well, there you go. He's like, forget about a senior year of high school basketball. You got to play with Kevin Durant for 2 months just in an open gym, just the two of you. So that was really cool. And the only thing I can really own up to is I did beat him in a half court shooting contest. We
Oh,
each took
wow.
five half court shots, but that's just a fluke, isn't it?
I go for the Suns, so I don't appreciate the Anthony Edwards comment, but I'm very jealous that you had that experience. And also, isn't that wild? I want to hear because you played at a high level basketball, right? And then
Mm,
you have to leave to do filming, and I think it was your senior year, and that's quite
yeah.
important for Americans. You don't have that opportunity, and then that full circle moment where you get to play with one of the best players of all time. What was that feeling like reflecting on it now?
It's one of those examples of just like when it's not even when one door closes, another opens. It's just like when you think one thing is a negative. I obviously didn't think it was bad that I was going to do a TV show. I was very excited about that, but you do kind of harp on all the things that you're missing out. And like you said, senior year in high school in America is a big deal. That's what so many of the movies of childhood are about, like senior year when that happens. And you build up your entire time at high school getting ready to be the oldest class on campus, and what you say goes. And in high school sports, when you're on varsity, like I would have been the team captain and you would have been running sort of the show a bit. And so to miss that was like, dang, I put in a lot of hours of practice killing myself. But then you find out that it pays off later because when we were auditioning for Thunderstruck, they auditioned however many actors, a bunch of my friends who are in the industry. And at first it was just reading sides, like the acting portion, which is good because that matters more than anything.
Mm.
And after three or four auditions, we got to meet the director, auditioned with the script again, and then it came down to two of us for each role. There was one other role that was like a basketball role. He was like on the team. And they had us come to Warner Brothers and play on the court that, funny enough, was built for or by, I think it's like for George Clooney when he was doing Batman, because he's an avid basketball player. And
Oh,
so
really? That's amazing.
we went out there, and I remember telling my dad, I was like, if we end up ever playing basketball in the audition process, there's no way I don't get this because I have so much built up. I've been playing for so long and how badly I want it. And to play with Katie, I've always been a huge fan of Kevin Durant. Um, I think I just terrorized the court. I remember I'm not a big guy, but I was blocking shots, stealing the ball. It was pretty incredible. So it was just fun to see how what I thought was such a negative thing ended up paying off later.
I love that mindset. That's very brilliant. I got two questions. Was basketball ever a consideration to do it professionally, or was it more to have fun and all the other stuff that you said?
If I was 6 inches taller, yeah, then I would have pursued it more in a way. I love it so much, but I'm too much of a I love acting. I'm a artist through and through, and I think to create, I talk about it so often with my friends, and so I would be a broken record if they're around. And it's this thing of like objectivity and subjectivity. I love the arts because it is so subjective, and like you can never fully master it. But in sports, like if you start winning and you don't lose, you have sort of maxed out at a point. I think it's why we've seen certain athletes sort of lose their sense existentially because they're like, I've put all this time and I've figured out how to be the best at this. But it sort of has a ceiling because if you won, you won. You could say I should have won by more points, but it doesn't really matter because you won at the end of the day. And
Yep.
I think it's the reason why I enjoy sports so much and I enjoy chess. It's because it balances the arts a bit. When you're acting, you can never, there's always something more. And it's hard to say better or worse, but like you can always go deeper, or you could make more light of something, or you could turn a syllable a different way or bite into a word. And all of the experiences of a human can come through every fricative that comes out of your mouth. I think it's such a beautiful thing. And so I'm just so in love with that I think given the choice, say I was 6'8" and a much better basketball player than I am, I think I would still have to be an actor. I think I don't have much choice in that.
I
got 1,000 questions. I can see you using your philosophy major to good use, the way that you see things. But it's also very interesting, and this is no shade on anyone. I love that you've got this mentality, and I've heard in other interviews as well, that you want to get better, and it's something you get to explore. You know, the art is something you get to explore within yourself. And you would think that someone you've been doing it since your teens could be like, I'm amazing, I'm the best, and have the biggest ego and be like a diva. But like throughout what seems to be true throughout your journeys, that you do want to get better, you'd love it, and it's something that just inspires you. Whereas you don't hear that too often, especially, you know, we're always focused on the negative stories, but we focus on like child actors having like horrible reputations and stuff. But I find it really intriguing that you're not like that stereotype, even though that's a very small percent of people, that you do want to constantly get better. And you've been doing this for a while as well. That's pretty
Yeah.
wild.
No, I think it's and that's all a testament to my parents and been instilled in me from a young age. And also that's something I probably hang my hat on more than anything is like curiosity. And curiosity is sort of endless. You can never go far enough. And I very much so believe in that is when you think you've gotten there, you're only part way. Like you have so much further. And that exploration is what keeps you active in life. And I never want to become complacent or feel like I've done this. The problem that I've had actually, and I've talked to the therapist about it, is like yeah, accepting a success because you're like, well, no, I could have done more, or I knew that I was meant to do this. So why would I celebrate this when there's more to go? And that's something that I've gotten much better at. And with like partners over the years and my family and friends, it's like, no, you can still celebrate little things and you don't have to do it in some massive way, but you can like accept, hey, a lot of that hard work that you put in just paid off and that's sweet. And as I say this, I need to heed my own advice. But yeah, I think we can always be striving for more if it's done in a healthy way. I've also been obsessive at a younger age when I don't know if it was as healthy as it is now.
Well, it's nice to see like the journey, because everyone I've spoken to has had it doesn't even matter if it's just in the creative arts like I do. I do writing and obviously the podcast as well, but I used to be an accountant. It's very important to enjoy the wins, but especially from an actor, it's hard because it can be very binary. You either get
Mm,
the role or you don't get the role. And then if you've got the role, was it a success? And I heard in
yep.
another interview that you did a role and you changed your relationship with how you see the success of it. That I think it didn't get picked up after the first season. And you had a really beautiful mindset shift where you were like, you know what, it was still a success. You got to do it. You got to learn. It doesn't matter how many eyeballs saw it. And I think that's very interesting because we're always like, what was the box office? What was this? And you can't control all of that stuff. So do you know what I'm talking about? I'd love to hear a bit more about how you got
Yeah,
there.
I do because I know that philosophy and I know when that sort of solidified after that. But I think that's something that's been building for a long time because the funniest thing, and people who are familiar with acting, is I would say some of my best performances ever in a character have only been seen by like three people, a casting director and some producers. And I did it in my room with a reader. And to say if I am the artist that I believe like a lot of my philosophy comes from in art, though that's more of a success than the thing that even was lauded by people and got 5 seasons, but I felt like I phoned in a couple of the episodes because it is about how much you can push yourself. And I've always sort of had this anecdote that I've talked about with my brother and sister a bit and people like that I've been drawn to over the years. And like if you had two, it's hard to describe because it's very visual, but like if you had two containers that held volume, say one is a massive vase, 5 feet tall, and another is like a glass of water that I'm holding up, obviously. I don't know if the video shows with that, but like if the vase is halfway full of water, that's a lot of water. It's 2.5 feet of water in this voluminous thing. And then a cup of water, say it was all the way full, it doesn't even come close to that vase. And I think as a society, especially in like capitalistic society, we go, well, that's worth more because that's more water. But in my head, I'll take the cup any day of the week because I'm going to make them people again, that person is fulfilling all of their potential. And yes, maybe weren't born into this region and with this upbringing and these financial capabilities or opportunities, whatever it might be. They're with what they have, they're doing everything they can. And there have been times where I feel like I've been given big opportunity. I want to reach the potential that I have. And so I always will value how much you make of your potential. And so bring it all the way back around to your question, because that's a bit long-winded, is like I think the times that I feel the most success with things are when I have filled out that entire cup or vase or however big that might be. And even if it has had success commercially or something else, or like a lot of people love it or it gets good reviews, but in my heart of hearts, I know it didn't do that. And other people do, it still will affect me. Like that, I won't see as much as a success as the other.
I've also got a gazillion points. I want to go back to when you said that some of your best acting was with three people in a room. A lot of people can't even get there because they're like, no, it hasn't been seen by anyone. But for you to recognize that you're an artist and you're growing and this is how you can develop and, obviously grow, I think that's a really awesome mindset because it doesn't necessarily, I know you were talking about how you still, obviously we want everything to be inverted commas a big success, but that is a big shift to get to that stage to say some of my best work hasn't been seen by anyone. Was there any moments that you went through where you're like, I have to change my outlook on this?
There was only one like actually, I mean, that would be untrue. There's so many. Yeah, of course. It'd be hard to tell because I just had to answer something today. It was like it was about some financial stuff of tax things, and they were asking how long I've been acting, and for so long it's been like, oh, handful of years. And then he was like, well, when did you do your first professional job? And I was like, oh shoot, 17 years ago, and I'm
Whoa.
30 now, so it's over half my life. And so it was this interesting thing where I was like, oh wow, I've been shifting this whole time as an artist, like seeing myself as an actor through those lenses. And so the biggest one to me happened fairly young, thankfully, is I did this Nickelodeon show called Bucket and Skinner's Epic Adventures, where I played this character called Bucket. And I know for some people, their first audition, they get a lead on a big show or a big film, and they're off to the races, and they didn't go through all the trials and tribulations. And then other people, like a Harrison Ford, it takes him years before he has his first success, and then even more years before he's the lead of something. But then he's one of the biggest movie stars ever, and everyone has a different journey at it. And I think I wouldn't say too young, but at a young age, within a few years of acting, before I had really trained the way I have now, I was the lead of this show, and we had shot some of it, and they were flying us out to New York. I'm based in LA, and we shot on the West Coast, and they flew us out to New York to do sort of press, like a press junket. And they were like, "Oh, and we're gonna show you this big poster in Times Square," like, and naturally is so exciting. And I remember I was with my mom and I was with my co-star Dylan Lane, and his mom, and we were there, and we go out to the street, and they have a poster of us in Times Square, and it's huge. I've never seen myself this big, and in my dreams as a kid, I that was part of it, and I didn't realize how little it was until that moment, and I was like, oh, I felt this huge sense of just emptiness, where I was like, I thought that's what I wanted, and it's not that. Like, who knows what the show's gonna do, if it's gonna do well or not. No one has really reviewed it yet, but it's coming out, and like as a kid, especially at 15, 16, that's supposed to be a really cool thing. And I remember thinking, oh, well, it's not that. So what is it? And so that was like the big shift for me. And
At
my
a young age.
mom, yeah, at a very young age, especially a formative age and a very impressionable age. And my mom she's gone through different jobs as a sort of psychologist, but she was a background in therapy, and we would speak loads, and that helped a lot. But I remember talking to her a lot during that time and sort of reworking and reframing what I wanted. I remember I had to make the choice: do I want to go away to college or do I want to keep acting? Going through a bunch of these different things, but in deciding that acting is just something I feel so pulled towards and what I love so much, and I have to do. I did reframe and restructure everything to sort of look at it as like I can't I can't be relying on outside validation for me to feel good about this craft. And so that was when I sort of espoused that philosophy of like, I obviously love that and obviously want that, but it's not my end all be all. And if that isn't the case, it's okay. And in turn, some of my favorite moments, I did a play that I wrote in
Oh, cool.
Edinburgh, and doing it like some of the shows at night, there would be a handful of people when we were able to press that and fill. It was a small theater, but then there was one show, and my buddy was out there with me. We laugh about it. I think there was three people in the audience, and or two people, and we looked at each other, and he was like, "Are you still gonna do the play?" And I was like, "Of course! Like this is what I love so much. Like, and it was one of the better shows. And am I sad that more people didn't see that one and they saw the one before when I fumbled a line? I don't know, because that's sort of what the temporal nature of our world, and I do love that. So I think again, sorry, I'm going off on all these
No, no,
tangents.
no.
Uh, I yeah, I reframed it at that moment, I think, when I was like, look, all of these other things are just sort of cherries on top, but it really comes down to like inside out.
At that age, that's something that every single human goes through. It doesn't matter what age you are, but to have the kind of to catch that there in that moment, brilliant. Two examples spring to mind. I had this one guy on this podcast, and he'd been chasing his words. He his number one goal was to be like the lead in this TV show, and he finally got it. He spent so long doing it. And he gives this brilliant example where he's on like the 40th floor of this amazing apartment. He looks this incredible view, but he felt this emptiness because he didn't have anyone to share it with. And he
Mm,
thought that success was, and I'm rephrasing. He obviously said it more eloquently than this. He thought success was just getting to that point, but he realized that he was chasing perhaps external things, whereas he wanted to share it with people. And his view of success changed massively because it wasn't just about getting the role. It was about the enjoyment, the journey, the process, and all of that. And I feel like that's a
yeah.
similar moment with you where you've got the big billboard, you're at a really young age, you could really soak up that ego, but you realize and you caught in that moment that there's something not quite right about these feelings. And often when we have, I'm also going on a tangent, often when we have these feelings, it can be really scary to deal with. And I know you have your mom and you can talk about it, but we can just put that under the rug and not want to deal with it because I'm on this big billboard. So I'd love to know more. Like, obviously, you studying philosophy, there was a reason, and you're born with your parents. That's amazing, but it's still so rare to be able to view all of this experiences. That chasing the external is not what's going to allow you to thrive.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. Like you said, you can shove things under the rug or you can sort of run at them. But there's also that sort of brutal mentality too. If you don't want to just get bogged down in all of the things as well, you know what I mean, that are wrong, because then you're sort of missing the gratitude part of like, I think there's a balance we're always striking of like, this is wonderful and this is something I wanted being to talk about someone else. It's sometimes easier on the 40th floor looking down. We're so grateful for all the work that we put in and to get that and to be the lead of the show that as he was talking about, but then being able to see internally like, oh, there's another part to this sort of vision that I had that would make this sweeter, and that is another person, someone to share it with, or whatever it might be. And I think for me, another big one, a lesson that I had to learn was, and everyone has different relationships with this. My brother is so good about this, just sort of innately. And I got the other end of the stick is expectations. I had built up such a wild relationship with expectations because maybe because I knew I worked really hard and I knew I was solid at what I was doing, but I expected this, I expected to get that. And I'm like, I'll put in all the work to get there. But then I got sort of to a place where even when the outcome exceeded the expectation, I was upset. And I'm like, wait, it's better than what I expected. But it wasn't, I was so like, but I'm picturing this, I'm picturing that. And so I think sometimes it's funny when we envision something like this is going to make me so happy, but we miss a little portion that is actually much bigger in retrospect when we look at it. And for me, that bigger portion was I needed to still figure out who I was as an artist. And like seeing this, I saw it as a bit fraudulent. I was like, you earned it with certain work, but like, is this everything that you want to be doing? And do you feel like you're taking the right steps to be here and where everything will go? And so the relationship with expectation is another one that I still sort of quarrel with today.
It's a very interesting, it's something that I always float around because we expect a certain thing. And then obviously, as you know, you get rejected 100 times to every one role, and then we want something and it doesn't quite work out. I know you're well traveled. Does the traveling help with that to kind of give you different perspectives? Because you look like the most well traveled actor that I've seen in recent, which I'm very proud of. It's amazing. Was that something that you do for getting your
I
experiences?
do. I really do. It's to me the most like one of the most important things in my life is travel. It's funny, I just had a conversation today with someone about uh I just got back from Ireland a couple days ago,
Oh,
and
nice.
I was talking about going on a trip in like 2 weeks, but I was like, I don't know if that's right. And they were like, you can't go. You just came back from it. I was like, well, no, I feel like I need to. But I sort of between every job, I like to go somewhere to like fill up my cup in a new way and see something different because otherwise we do have to pull from emotional wells within ourselves, not meaning it's always going to be negative, but even positive things are a way to look at the world and going around and experiencing new things is so vitally important to that. Also, it humbles you and it makes you realize how many people in the world and what people are dealing with, and you're filled with gratitude and empathy, and also for me, it lets my imagination really kick into another gear because I love to sit at a coffee shop in the morning, have a coffee, have a croissant, and like watch people go by that if I see people here, I know I see the outfit they're wearing. I know the street they're walking on. I can put a lot of the image together, even though I have no idea what's happening with them.
Yeah,
But it
I
doesn't
get
let
it.
my imagination fantasize like, oh, this person is going here for this reason and living this life. And it's just fun. I love to be somewhere where you feel like anything can happen and the spontaneity is there. And I think it, when I've like done my journal work, I've really correlated how much traveling and acting have in common.
Oh, okay. You're speaking my language. I know you also meditate, something that I do, but it's very interesting. Being in LA, I speak about this a lot, and I don't actually know, but I've just heard it from everyone else. There's this fear, but a lot of people come from fear, given like when you're never going to work again, or you have to be here, you have to be there for that audition. You don't know when the phone's going to ring. Very brave, and you're doing it right. Very brave of you to be like, you know what? I actually need to go and travel, learn experiences, feel that gratitude, fill my cup up. That is rare because I know so many people that don't want to leave the area, and there's no judgment whatsoever because they're worried if that phone will ring if they get a job or an audition. But it sounds like, well, not what it sounds like. Your life, you're more fulfilled as a human, being more all-rounded than just purely just waiting for the phone to ring and just focusing 100% on the acting. Am I hearing that right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I that was another realization is I'm not an actor first. Like acting is my favorite thing in the world and I will pour everything into it and everything comes back to acting. But the better human I am, the more empathetic I am as a person, the better an actor I'll be. And so many of my friends are actors and like you'll sit in class and you'll talk about things. You have to pull these people that we're playing are people in life. So you have to be out living life and experiencing them rather than sort of staying. A routine is good, but actually, I can't even comment on it. A routine is better for some people. For
Yeah, I
me,
don't
I
have one.
need this sort of spontaneity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need it to be moving around and to be open to anything that can possibly happen. But it's also, is it Murphy's Law where it's like if you book a trip, then that's when you'll get a job. Like the amount of times I've had to cancel trips because something came up, and I'll always say no to the trip for the job if I like the job and I'm gonna do it. And that's okay. And like I think it's a better place to be than never going away and then thinking about what if. And then sometimes you don't get the job and you're sitting there like, well, I could have actually been in the Arctic right now or something.
Very interesting. And, it also, and I know you've been alluding to this, the identity around acting, in particular with actors, and I
Mhm.
know it applies to many other professions as well. But, normally when we like start something, I am an actor. This is who I am.
Mm.
And to even have that space where you can be like, I'm an actor, but I'm also Taylor. I like sport, I journal, I meditate, I love to travel. That is a huge journey for an actor. I know we spoke about the traveling, but I know that there was a moment in your life, and there was probably a few, where you realize, sometimes you're like, inverted commas, hot when you're acting, And then when you're not acting, you might feel like low self-worth. And this is common for every actor. It just seems to be how it is. Like we feel, inverted commas, fulfilled when we're acting. And then, there's more time when we're not acting. And I know a lot of actors, and it sounds like you have as well, you also have to make that shift where it's okay when I'm not working. It's okay when I'm not an actor. I still am an actor, even if I'm not working in this moment. Does anything spring to mind? Did you also have to have a shift, or does it tie into all the stuff we've...
So much. Like everything you're saying, I agree with entirely. And as we're sort of in collaboration on this idea, like you miss out on life if you're not taking advantage of the moments you're not working. Because when you're working, I just got off a film. I was there for a couple months out of town. And my friends always joke when I'm gone, they're like, we never hear from you. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm in this creative mindset and I'm there and I'm staying there, and parts of my life need to sort of be on hold, and that's difficult. But then it's the same when I'm back. When I'm back, I want to be so present with everything that I'm doing that I can be there and I'm not just thinking about, okay, how do I get the next job? How do I do this? I can be an active participant in my life, because this is the one thing that we all get a go at, and I want it to be as enjoyable and as full as possible. But speaking to something you said earlier, which I love, because I haven't noticed as much until I've gotten older, because for so long people talk about child actors, but let me rephrase that. I am a child actor. For a lot of the years, people are saying this about child actors.
Yep.
Now it's like I was a child actor, because now I'm an adult and I'm 30 now, and I can look back at it, and that's one of the biggest blessings, is I was able to work out a lot of those identity things younger as an actor. Whereas say you came out of college and you did your MFA, and now you're graduating at 26 or 28 or 24, I don't know what age you come out of that normally, but in that time period you start acting, it takes a while of like, okay, I got a job, I'm doing this, and then you have that period where you're not working and you're like, shit, it's COVID. What am I doing? And I know during COVID I spoke to a lot of friends were like, well, what do I do now? And I was like, it's a beautiful time because we get to find ourselves. It was sort of forced introspection for everyone. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I went through so much of that as a teenager, because I was like, my self-worth was attached to my job for a bit, because I was like, I wouldn't say too young, but you're in the workforce at a young age where most of your peers, except for your colleagues who would be your age if you're on a kid show. But like when I was doing the movie with Kevin Durant, you're the youngest person on that set. And everyone else, professionals, the cinematographer, producers, the makeup department, they're all older than you, and they've, for the most part, worked out more of who they are. And you're like, well, I know who I am when I'm here because I'm on set. I know what to do. I know the job I'm doing. But when I'm not, am I still an actor? Like, what am I doing? And so I was able to sort of work through a lot of that at a young age, which was very beneficial to having a healthier relationship in my 20s, I think.
I'm still so impressed, and I don't want to keep on sucking up to you, because at a young age, we're very impressionable, especially when you're around all adults. It could force you to, like, inverted commas, grow up and pretend to be an adult or very serious, or I have to be like number one. I have to be like Kevin Durant, for example. You feel you have to be a certain way, but to still explore within yourself, who am I when outside of acting? That's very, very interesting, because you could have gone, at that age, you probably have access to more things that teenagers don't have. And you still wanted to work on yourself. And I'm sure you still had a childhood and you could enjoy, but to even ask yourself those questions and go back to, like, who am I? I know you mentioned your family. I know I spoke about this before, but I find that really interesting. You could have gone off the rails, but you didn't. There must have been something within you, or is it just this art that you just feel fulfilled and it's all about that? Like, what is it exactly, if you can put it to words?
It's a big question, and it's something I'm always trying to answer. And if you read my journal, you'd see some days I seem to have a hold on it, and other days, even now, I'm like, it's this amorphous sort of intangible thing that I'm like, am I sure about that? Because we are so capricious as people, and we move in different ways, where I might wake up tomorrow and be met with this sort of confusion again about who I am and what I stand for on certain points. But yeah.
Now, isn't that's brilliant though? You ask, what I'm getting at is you're able to ask yourself those questions. For example, when I was an accountant, I hated it. It was miserable. I felt like I had a depression in the soul. I wasn't able to be creative. I was too afraid to ask myself those questions because I was too scared to look at the mirror. And it's brilliant. Sure. Most people, and there's no judgment whatsoever, we are too scared to ask ourselves hard questions. but at such a young age.
Yeah.
And even now, I love that you're not so it's either this or that. You're still able to explore, because once we stop asking questions, we become complacent. And so that's what I love, is that
Absolutely.
you want to grow, you want to be a better version of yourself, or however you want to call it. That's the beauty. That's the thing that I love the most in the world. It means you can continue living. Well, that's how I see it.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I'm right there with you and with all the other people. At times you're like, oh, it's scary to ask these questions. But that's one where I have to say it's just a testament to my family. Uh, been very fortunate with the people I've been in relationships with, been fortunate with the friends I've had, because your circle helps as well. Like when you're around people who are also willing to ask them those questions or put themselves on display and expose themselves and the dark parts of themselves, it makes it easier and more comfortable for you to do. And so that's why I also want to do it, so that I'm in no way out here to be a role model in any way, but in relationships, you're just a better person for the world if you're willing to do it. Even if one person is like, oh, that's a question I asked myself, because that's how I learned it. Like I ate up interviews of people and listening to them. I'm like, oh wow, they asked themselves that. Have I asked myself that yet? And then you get in the habit of asking these questions, and then at first you might lie to yourself a little bit, or
We all do.
like not fully find the honesty in it. But over time, you start going deeper and deeper, and as soon as you do start answering honestly, you can start changing things, which is nice. And so my my parents obviously asked me and my siblings these questions loads, and that's where it started. And then I've had friends that have been wonderful in that, and in partnerships and relationships, it's been great because I've with people, I've learned things that people have looked at within themselves that I wasn't, and vice versa. I've had people go like, "Oh, it's so interesting. You're always constantly seeking something further in yourself," and it's kind of encouraged me to ask those questions. And I think that's sort of this inspiration begets inspiration that we kind
Yeah,
of send around the world.
definitely.
And so I think we always, if anything, you never tell anyone what to do or what works or doesn't work. But the only thing that I really would put a stamp on is like you got to ask yourself these questions and go deeper. And even if it is just reassurance that everything you're doing is right, that's good because now you're more confident in what you are doing. And if it's not, then you get to kind of start on whatever you want to be doing quicker.
I love that. And great questions lead to great answers. It allows us to constantly grow. Brilliant. Very rare. I don't do it all the time. So I want to put that out there that I'm not the master. But when you just hear a great question, I'm not talking about from an interview sense, whether we ask ourselves the question or our parents are, maybe they're cooking up food and then they just ask you a question. It can change everything in our mind. Just one quick,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And even the world asks us questions. When we look at all of the wild tragedies, and you hate to go to the negative side of things, but that have happened in the world in the last 4 or 5 years that have been global things, the trying to find the positive in everything. COVID was a positive, and not the lives that were lost, but in the forced introspection that everyone had to have at least a little bit, where you were met with this, oh my God, I remember when it first happened, it was like, okay, cool. I'm like, I guess I'm gonna have wine every day for a little bit. Like, it'll be gone in 2 weeks. Like, once this passes, okay, now it's gonna be a month. And then after like 2 months of like, I was having 4 glasses of wine a night. I'm like, okay, now this is the new normal. I need to get back into a thing of like, what am I gonna do with my day if I'm not doing the job that I normally do? And so that was another thing, or what's happening in Palestine with Palestine and Israel, like everything asks us questions as well. And if we're open and receptive to trying to answer those honestly, I think we'll see new sides of ourselves every day.
I love that. I agree 100%. Sometimes like people can focus, and I do it at times as well. There's a lot of darkness that's coming to light, but I think
Mm,
that's also brilliant in one that it allows us to explore within ourselves. Like I don't, we won't get into COVID, but COVID brought up, as I would imagine for so many people, so much stuff with me. It brought up self-worth. I gained so much weight just eating ice cream. I'm like, okay, why is this
yeah.
happening? And I look back at it now, and I'm just talking about my experience, not about what's happened around the world. It was a great lesson for me to go, okay, there's a few things that I need to, take charge of. And it was brilliant in that sense. Would I want to go through it again? No. But it's more that
Yeah.
this situation happened and was out of my control. What can I learn from it? And yes, we might like have slip ups where we talk about where we drink a lot of wine or have a lot of ice cream, probably not even slip up, but it was a great opportunity to, look deep within ourselves. I want to go back to something really interesting. You mentioned how your parents have been a great support system. And I think when you were telling your dad that you wanted to pursue acting, I think there was maybe a little bit of resistance, but then he sat with you and said something about his experience and how, do you know what I'm saying? I don't want to leave
I
too
know
much.
exactly. No,
Yeah.
you're dead on. That is one that I think about often still. Is like whenever you have doubts in everything that you do, and when those doubts arise, I always think of that example of it was uh, my parents aren't like analytical like this, but they were like write out a T graph of the pros and cons because it was I had been on this Nickelodeon show. I think it was about done. It canceled right when like I would be going to college. I think it was a nice time where I had to make a choice of like I'd always sort of and I don't know if this was societal or what it was or personal. I wanted to go to university and I wanted to go study and do what most of my friends were doing. But I also loved the job. And I remember being like, am I gonna stop acting and go to school? Or will I stop going to school and continue acting? Or what I ended up doing was finding a sort of middle ground where I did my university online for my bachelor's degree and then was able to continue acting. But I was questioning all of it. My dad, who he was always so supportive of, but he was like, I hear you, and who knows, like you're doing this as a child, but is this something that you want to do for 60 years? And he came into my room and he had a conversation with me about, he's like, I get told no. He was doing a different job. He's working for a radio station as a DJ and he loved it. That was what he wanted to do. And he still talks about it. He talked about it like a week ago with our family at dinner. He was telling, we had a friend over who's like a recent friend, and he was telling him about this. I don't know if he knows, and I should tell him again just how grateful I am about this conversation he had with me, because it meant nothing to him, I imagine. But he came in my room and he was like, I see you get told no every day because there's so much rejection in this industry, in the world, but this industry in particular, like as a 14-year-old, you're being told no every day. And how does that not just break you? And he's like, I see you wake up the next day and you'll just get the next audition and you love it. You have so much passion and you go at it with everything you have. He's like, I get told no at my job now. He then went into a different occupation and he went back to school and he's like, this is my backup job. And when I get told no, I'm just like, you don't even understand. This isn't what I wanted to be doing. I want to be doing something else. You can't tell me no. And he's like, that is something I wouldn't want you to ever feel or live with. And he's like, I will support you no matter what because you just feel so much passion for this and you love it. Go chase that dream. And if at the end of the day you don't want to do anymore, then make a change. But until that goes away, don't stop doing this because you love it and you're able to get back up after every rejection and go for it. And so that was a really big one for me is like, yeah, I get told no all the time, but there are times I definitely take it personally. I just love the craft so much and I love what I'm doing. And I think more than anything that just says to people, and I see it with my brother, he's going through right now, is he's trying to figure out, we always joke, my brother's name is Zach, that he doesn't necessarily know what exactly he wants to do, but he knows all the things he doesn't want to do,
Yeah,
which is
that's
still a
smart.
great quality.
Yeah.
So he's going through it, and that's something where I was like, okay, I know that I want to do this, and I would just encourage everyone to chase the thing they want to do because even if it's not the easiest path, at least you'll love it through the ups and the downs, the trials and the tribulations. And I think that was a big one for me in that conversation with my dad. I was like, you're right. And it really swayed me to go, why would I stop doing the thing that I love so much, even if that's not the most normal move for where I'm at right now at this age?
Okay, that's a powerful conversation. I love that your relationship with your parents and that you're able to hear each other. That's very rare. That's amazing. I want to also talk about the regret side because it's a really powerful story. And I brought this up on so many podcasts, so I apologize, but I think it will hit with you. I had this author, international best-selling author on this podcast, and she wrote a book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. She was a palliative care nurse, and she would interview people before they were about to pass what their top regrets were. And the number one regret was, I wish I'd lived the life that I wanted to live and not the life I thought others wanted me to live. And that was like a real
Wow.
game changer. And because so often, and you mentioned like normal, but so often we think we need to do something to fit into society or we need to be a certain way. And there's pros and cons. Sometimes conforming is definitely healthy. Most of the time, probably not. But to be able to still look at that, have that conversation and be like, if I go and do something else, will I have those regrets? Will that be something that will impact me? And I love that your dad was also able to, recognize that within himself and then part that advice on you. Because I know, like, for example, with me, I was an accountant. I could have probably, if I was doing it now, all my friends are managers and have nice house and cars and all of that. And now I'm doing this and writing, even though I'm not exactly where I want to be. I'm so much happier doing what I'm doing now than if I would be an accountant, because I would regret that probably for the rest of my life. I know this is what I need to do. So I just think it's so amazing that you could have, you had that opportunity, but you were able to hear it. Is regret something that you think about, or is just you follow what you need to do and then you deal with it when it comes up?
I think like most people, like almost everyone's got to have, as much as we say like I have no regrets or no regrets or whatever the adage might be, surely we do feel regretful over certain things, and I would say I probably feel them more in a moment and then I deal with it and they're behind me. I don't have sort of deep-seated regrets that I can think of, and I'm often looking, but also I've talked to with friends about this that I want to do this more, is I'm often looking forward and not backwards as much. But more than any of that, I would love to just be present and not looking forward or backwards, just in the moment. This is the choices I've made have brought me here, and the choices I'll make in the future will be made in the future. But yeah, regrets are like, I don't know. They're definitely, what is it like when you're looking in the past? It's like a proverb. You're welcoming depression, and when you're looking into the future, you're welcoming anxiety. But when you're in the present, all you can deal with is the present. And so, um, I think when I was younger, I probably experienced that much more than I do now. But obviously, there'll be times now where I'll do something. I'm like, God damn it! I should have just done this, and I'll be regretful and feel like a dunce for a period of time. But then I just kind of accept it. And I think that sort of moves into that territory of like acceptance. Like wild acceptance says we've done the things we've done, and we're here now and we're moving along. And I can't think of massive regrets, but again, I hear myself say that and I go, am I deluding myself and not like accepting a regret that might actually be there deep seated? But I can't think of major regrets at the moment. But it's so interesting that what you were saying about the author is like that would be the number one regret, is not doing the thing that you wanted as much. And I guess I have thought about that because I'll tell people all the time, like, if I wanted to just make loads of money, then I would have gone into business, or I would have gone into anything other than acting. Because you look at, I mean, you look at George Clooney, right, as just an example of that's one of our bigger actors that we have of our generation. And I don't want to try and dive too far into his life or miscalculate the numbers, but it seems like he made more money in a couple of years with a tequila beverage in business than he did in his entire acting career. And it's like that, I don't know. If I were to do that, then a lot of my validations and things I'd be excited about would be external. Like I did this so I could make money. And then, why I'm so happy at night is because I made money to do this and this, rather than my validation coming internal from inside out, being like, well, I'm happy throughout every little moment of the day, even when I'm like, damn, this is a struggle, but I'm doing the thing that I love to do and not because I feel like I should be doing it.
You're onto that so great, especially from like going back to the regret side. What I was alluding to is that you might not have the macro regrets because you're at least on the path to, you're honoring your intuition, you're honoring what you love. And yes, there might be instant situations where maybe you misspoke or you could have said a different line or you were rude to your parents and, you go back and go, damn, and, you catch that. And that can be a regret. But living the life full of regret, like when you're 80 years old and looking on your bed, when you're on your bed and to look back and go, I could have done the more macro things, that would really haunt me. So that kind of like scares me in that sense, to follow
Absolutely.
what you actually love. You mentioned about being in the present because it's very common in life. Doesn't matter what industry we're in. Looking back is depression and looking forward is anxiety. And then it's about being in the moment, which is very hard for every single person on the planet. But also imagine as an actor, it could be a little bit harder because you're always waiting for the phone to ring. If the phone rings, your life can change. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to know how you deal with that side, because that is, at some level, you can do all the work on yourself. At some level, I'm sure every time you hear a phone ring, you're like, shit, have I got a job? Or, yeah, I'd love to know What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it is true. When you're up for a job and you're waiting for the phone ring and your manager calls, you're like, "This is it. I mean, something's gonna happen, big or small, and we'll see." I That's a tough one that I don't have an answer to, and I'm still working through every moment. Is like, how do you enjoy while also giving everything in the same passion? Because there's one way which is sort of pulling back a bit and going like, I don't care whether I get this job or not, but that's also not true, and I don't want to be that person either. I want to fully go for it, and I want to be sad when I don't get the things, but I don't want them to tank me and be like, oh, it's all over, or I'm now every time this happens, I have to take another week to get myself back on the rails. I want it to be that sort of healthy balance. And I think some of that comes from self-generating things. Like if you're an artist, acting is tough because you can't I guess you can now that there's iPhones, and if we are storytellers, you can make movies. They'll be on a very small budget. You couldn't do something like I just saw this Megalopolis trailer from Francis Ford Coppola like a day or two ago. Like you could never make a movie like that on your own.
Yeah.
So
I
if
thought you
you're a
would say you could
songwriter,
do that on the
yeah,
phone. But no.
no, no, not quite. But if like I have a lot of friends in music, and I always joke with them, I'm like, I'm envious of how you can just go do the thing, whether or not a bunch of people are listening to it. You can create a song every single day. You can create 10 songs every day. You can't necessarily create a movie in the same way, but like I started writing, and that was a big thing for me of being able to still scratch that itch that I have of creating and telling a story, but not waiting for someone to call for me to be able to do that. And that's been entirely fulfilling as a creator. But at the same time, you can like just do things with friends. I started just like pulling up scenes, and you start working on scene work, or putting things up on stage and doing small scale plays. Like you're getting better, you're also doing the thing you love to do. And as long as you're not bogged down by the fact that, oh, maybe a million people aren't seeing this, it's still a creative pursuit, and that's very admirable. And if it makes you feel good, the only bummer is when you start to rewire too much and it really hinges on the validation of a lot of people loving and liking what you're doing. Because then, because then you kind of are beholden to that, and you need that to happen. And so I guess I try and steer clear of that as much as possible.
Very interesting because, exactly what you said. A lot of actors, it's kind of out of their control when they can work. But then, you're not putting all of your eggs in one basket, and now you've been doing writing. And, you mentioned that you've done a play. That's awesome because you can still channel your creative energy and then not be totally attached to the one thing.
Yeah.
Did the writing come about in more recent times because of this, or you just realized that you had a love for the writing, or is it kind of like all the above?
I've always really loved writing. And so that was something that was always there. And I think it, it happened while I was on the Nickelodeon show, actually. So fairly young. I remember I thought, oh, the biggest pursuit in storytelling was what I was doing as an actor. But I realized like I had a vision in my head how something would go, how this character would be, and I could control to an extent how I would say the lines and embody this character. But there was an episode where they fired a co-star, like a guest star on an episode, halfway through an episode. They brought in someone else who looked just like the person. We still did the episode just as it went. And I was like, oh, wow, the writer's vision didn't entirely change. The story that they had in their head, that this world they wanted to create, they still created. But for this actor who was fired, their whole world just collapsed. Like, you're like, oh my God, this is awful. And to me, I was like, oh, I'm not going to dumb it down all the way to being pawns, but you've heard, like, I forget what director or if it's just like a set sort of aphorism that like actors can be props with mouths at times, like to service the bigger story.
Yep.
And so when that happened at a younger age, I was like, oh, I do love writing so much, and I'm able to still tell the stories because that's what I got into it most for, was to sort of exercise my imagination. And so I started shadowing the writers, and I would
Ah,
send them things that I had been writing. And even the writers of the Nickelodeon show, I've sent them multiple scripts from when I was young, when I was just figuring out how to go about things. But also I sort of I was an avid reader, and I think that was the penchant I had for philosophy, and why I studied philosophy for my bachelor's degree. Is I was like, even then, my parents were like, getting a degree at school, but you're doing in philosophy, that doesn't really get a job necessarily. It doesn't lead to one thing. It's more just like a way to think and see and operate. Obviously, there are definitely jobs that it suits,
Yeah.
but it's not like a more skilled part of academia. Not skilled. Like what am I trying to say? Like you would study mathematics to be an engineer. You would do certain things that feed into this one thing, but philosophy is sort of ubiquitous. And so that was another thing that sort of fed into my writing is I loved reading so much and I loved going into these worlds of these sort of creators and their imaginations. And so I think I just took a page of that. I was like, I would love to try my hand at this. And it's something that I find so much fulfillment in.
Same. There's something about writing where you get to explore an aspect of yourself, even if you're writing a character that has nothing to do with your world that you don't exist in. I just see it as like not only creative fulfillment, but you're learning so much about yourself, and you're not necessarily trying to, but you are as we said earlier on, you're asking yourself so many different questions of what this world would be like, and automatically you have to ask yourself those questions. But also within that experience, you see this actor get fired, and I assume you think the actor's like doing a decent job. Wouldn't that shake you, like shake the foundations of what you think
That
is?
would shake me personally, and I think that's why I was affected so much by it. It would shake me so much. And I think it would make me question everything, like my value, my worth, and everything. But the beautiful thing that's come all the way around is that actor has gone on to do great things. And it's a testament to like there wasn't anything wrong with him. It just wasn't exactly what they had envisioned or whatever it might have been. But and I'm glad that that person it didn't seem to deter too much. But yeah, I think when that happened, I was like, I need to be doing other things to be fulfilling myself because otherwise, if it is also predicated on whether this director likes me or doesn't, or gives me more lines or tells me I'm doing a terrible job, I don't want to be so uh, reliant on that, I guess.
We've had so many actors fired who are inverted commas your big name people. Just the other day, one actor was on a show. They're on a massive show, like 15 seasons plus. I don't know if they were on it for 15 seasons plus, but over 200 episodes. And they were fired. And then another colleague who I've also had on the podcast was also fired. But it actually wasn't, it had nothing to do with them. It was, maybe a creative vision. I'm not talking about that example, but I've had another lady, one of my favorite actresses, she's been on this podcast. She was fired, and it sounded like, I know this is different territory, but one of the executives didn't think, inverted commas, she was hot enough. That's a disgusting example, but she's still a
Yeah.
great actress, and she's been killing it since then. We've had other actors who they were brilliant, but they weren't tall enough, or their eyes weren't blue enough, or they just didn't quite look like the rest of the family. And every single person I've spoken to that has been fired, and there's so many, they've still continued to move forward. And that's a credit to them because you can take it so personally and have amazing careers. It's just so funny. Like going back to the accounting example, if I was fired because my look wasn't right, like it wouldn't work. But in acting, it's normal. And also, just if anyone's listening, if you've been fired, it might not actually be your fault, which is
Oh,
still
absolutely.
blows my mind.
Yeah, it's hard because we are such solipsistic beings where we think, well, I did this wrong or that wrong or whatever, but there's so many things out of your control. And even not getting a job is not necessarily getting fired, but it has a similar feeling. You're like, why didn't they want me? Why was I not the right person? And you go through all these things and then come to find
Self-worth.
out later on, you end up working with the person who made the decision who didn't cast you years later. And they're like, oh, no, no, we loved you, but you just didn't match this person. That was all it was. And you're like, oh, well, I thought it was because I wasn't good or you didn't like me, whatever it was. And that's all to your point that sometimes it is out of our control and sometimes it is in our control. And that doesn't mean you're the worst. We all have bad days too. And that's another thing of like accepting sometimes we don't hit the bar, but that doesn't mean our self-worth isn't what it is.
Yeah.
And it's easier said than done, though, I will say, because that is not a fun feeling in any way, and I don't know how everyone copes with it differently. But as long as you keep moving forward, it's always a beautiful thing when you hear that people bounce back even stronger.
Agreed. And I'm not commenting on your situation, but wouldn't it be nice if, other executives or the managers or even the cast, whoever made the decisions, would call up and be like, "You're actually really good. It was just this." But we don't hear that.
It would be great if they all had such good bedside manner, and some do. I've actually had this happen where I haven't
Oh,
got a
nice.
job, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? We had amazing conversations in the room multiple times. I've read for you so many times." And then they've explained, like, we really like you, and hopefully something will come up down the road. And sometimes that has not happened, and you're like, maybe they were just being kind, but it does help ease the blow a little bit.
And also, as you said, sometimes, for example, let's just say I was with you, you've done so many jobs, and then on one day you just may have not performed for whatever reason. You're human and you get fired because you maybe weren't good enough on that day. That's like normal in life. But then if you look back
Exactly.
at your career and be like, I had a bad day. That's normal. I don't need to beat myself up. I can look at why that happened, but also to have kindness there. But also going back to fulfillment and not having all your eggs in one basket. Now you're doing conventions, and that's also another way, not just to earn money, but I'm sure that gives you some creative fulfillment. Um, I also know that you started doing conventions a little bit later, especially through Star Wars. I don't think you were doing them right at the start. What was the reason for you wanting to do them later?
Um, that's an interesting one, and in attempt of staying true to everything I've been saying, being honest with it. At the start, I had a preconceived notion, a connotation that like they weren't respected. And that alone goes to show I was more concerned with the outside perspective or image of what this might be. And I was wrong. Like I thought that it was you just did it because you weren't able to work and you needed to make some money and you were just sort of peddling your wares to do something during the time off. And then people I'd worked with were going to them, and I remember seeing it was a actor that again that we're talking about a very big actor that I've looked up to was on the list for a comic convention who I regarded as one of the actors that I'm like I would love to be that person later on in life and look back and be like this has been my career. And I was like, oh, and it's so funny how we're so influenced by people. I was like, if they're doing it, then I guess it's not all of a sudden cool to me, but like maybe it's fine to do. And I went to him and I was like, this is great. Like it is another way to work while you're not filming something. But at the same time, the job is so interesting because when you start, especially I think it's why people love theater so much, it's this exchange of energy. It's what we did primitively in storytelling. We created and we had a reception and we took people on a journey and we felt how they were experiencing it. And when you're doing shows like with a film crew of like 80 people, not all of them are there while you're filming, but maybe you get a dozen or 2 dozen that are on top of you. And when it's a comedic thing and you hear them laugh, you're like, oh, I got it. That is that joy. Or when afterwards they come up to you and they're like, I was really moved by what happened. That is what makes it so whole. But doing something, especially like a Star Wars Rebels, where you're in a booth with just the director, who for that whole show is Dave Filoni, a couple of the producers, and your castmates, there's not more than 10 people sometimes, and you create and you put so much into it, and then you put it out into the world and you're like, I wonder if people are enjoying this or like how this is being perceived or what. And going to these conventions and hearing the sentiments of people who have experienced and watched it have been so incredible, and being able to share that energy even further down the line has been amazing. And also I know what it's like to be a fan of shows and films, and being able to tell people what I went through when I was watching it, what it like made me question, or what it sort of grew in my imagination, or whatever the thing was. Or like, I remember after watching one of the Step Up movies, my brother and I came home from the movie theater with my family. We got all of the pillows off the couches and we were trying these dance moves of like spinning on our heads because we saw it and it was just like a fun thing that we were
Yeah.
inspired to do. And so in that way, it's been fun to see people come in and tell you like what Star Wars or whatever show or film they had seen you in, what that sort of stirred within them. And so I've really loved it. And in the last couple years, especially, I've gone to more and more, and I've thoroughly enjoyed them. I've enjoyed it so much that on this last film that I was doing, I left one of the weekends because there was a convention and I didn't want to cancel it if I didn't have to. And the work days worked out where I was off the Friday. So I was like, you know what, I'll fly out Friday night and then I flew back Sunday and was there on set Monday. But it was
Cool.
still like I say that as a testament to how much I have enjoyed them, and I've enjoyed like talking with people, and also you get one of the more fun things that you experience on set, which is hanging out in the green room with other actors who are just other pirates who want to share stories and make each other laugh and push the envelope. And I really enjoy the whole full circle thing of it.
Good for you. And it goes back to you. To first of all, I appreciate the honesty because it's come up a lot. A lot of actors, and I even believed this a few years ago. Oh, they're not cool. They're for nerds. All of these things that aren't true. And then it's so well nice that I've had that shift. But it's so nice with a lot of the actors that I've spoken to. They also had similar feelings, admit that they were wrong, and they love it. And even I'm sure energy-wise, it can be quite hectic when there's so many people that would like want a signed autograph. But I've seen it quite a few of your interviews on them. The people like love you and what you've brought out for them, and just being able to share, for them to be able to share a story with you would just rejuvenate you, and you'd feel energized. And it's so nice that you've had that shift and you allowed yourself to enjoy it. Because one, you could have not gone, or two, you could have gone with your arms crossed and be like, this isn't cool. I'm only doing this for certain reasons. But to actually like go there and enjoy it, I think that's beautiful and a great testament to you.
Oh, well, thank you. No, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope any person I've met has felt that energy exchange, because that's what it is, and I hope everyone understands how much they're giving to you in those interactions, because their energy sort of feeds your energy, and it makes you just feel amazing. I really love it.
How do you deal like after a convention, after a day, 2 or 3 days, however long they are? How do you deal with like the energy overload? Because you're not dealing with that
It
many
is a lot.
people.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a lot, and you there's multiple things going on, because there's a big thing too of leaving your ego at home. I always say, like when you go to a convention, because you can feel some people who go to these conventions and their ego is right on the table with them the whole time, and this isn't done right, and they're doing, and you're like, this is beautiful. We're here meeting people who want to meet us. Like that's an amazing thing. But you also realize at times you're in service of someone else's experience. Like sometimes people want to come and just tell you about how this episode, when this character died, they went through this with their family, and how that affected them, and how it brought up a conversation about healing or loss or whatever it might be. And that has nothing to do with you. That was a character that you played in this thing, and you were a part of their story. And that is a beautiful thing, as well as realizing that we're all characters in everyone else's story, the same way everyone else is a character in your story. And so that's another way I've looked at conventions, is you're there to sort of service someone's experience as well. And so that's been a very fun, empathetic way of enjoying them even more so, where as much as I say I love traveling, I feel like this is part and parcel with it, where you're like, it's a new experience of experiencing a new person and a new set of eyes, and however they saw this same singular thing through another perspective.
You have a very contagious, inspiring outlook, and being of service to someone else. And I'm not talking about like from a religious sense. That's just so beautiful that you can meet someone kind of where they're at, put your ego to the side, and just share an experience. And then that's also happening in the masses, and still being like true to yourself and the person. Brilliant. This is a loaded question, and I know we can speak about it for ages, but anything that springs to mind, what has the Star Wars franchise done for your confidence and the conventions as well?
For the confidence, I would say it's obviously just aided in being a part of something so big, and it's sort of a vote of confidence from people who have been such veritable storytellers. So that's been very nice and incredible, and to be this like pebble in this very big beach of the coolest galaxy ever, that's been awesome. At conventions, it's great because so many people love Star Wars, and that's something that I've really realized over the years, and it's been fun to be a part of that. And people they know every storyline that has gone on in Star Wars. They'll have theories of why you said this line rather than that line, and you're like, wow, that I haven't even thought that deeply into it, and that's been incredibly fun. But it's amazing to just see the sort of, I just feed off of energy so much, and like to see how much vitality that people have over this thing. People will have your character tattooed on their body, and it means so
Well,
much to them. And that is like the first time that happens, you're like, whoa, whoa, what, is this right? Like,
get away
I
from
want to
me.
apologize at first. I don't know what it is. And then I've come full circle. Well, I think it's just amazing. Like, you're a part of this, their life again in some way, and it's been beautiful. I think I think it only has aided in everything. And also it's made me a big Star Wars fan because I've admitted before, like it wasn't that I wasn't a fan, I just wasn't hip to everything that was Star Wars. And I see it as just this incredible vehicle of storytelling, but also this like unifying entity that has brought so many people around the world together. You're used to going to conventions just in America, but then you go to them in Europe or in other countries and you realize, oh, it's everywhere. And they do these things called Star Wars celebrations, which I had never heard of. And it's
And
like just a convention of Star Wars. So it's like 100,000 people that come together
holy,
in, I think the next one's in, I don't want to misquote it, I think it's Japan. But I went to one in Chicago, I went to one in Anaheim, there's one in London, and like people fly in from all over the world. And there's been friendships, there have been marriages, there have been all these things that came from people sharing this thing that they love. And it's not too dissimilar from, I used to go to baseball games all the time as a kid with my brother and my dad, my whole family. And you'd start talking to the person next to you watching the game, and this game, this thing brought you all to the same place. And then you struck up a friendship with someone that you wouldn't have had sharing this common interest. And so I think it's just been a beautiful, beautiful full circle thing that not only did I get to do the thing I love and making of creating a character and developing them and exploring emotion and empathy, but also then sharing it with people who've enjoyed it and learning from them just as much.
it's not often where you play a character and that character is going to outlive you in the sense.
Yeah,
Sometimes we
exactly.
might like be in a sitcom, for example, and it could be a really good character, but people will forget about it naturally. But, playing a Jedi in the Star Wars world, that character is going to live for like your grandchildren's grandchildren. People are going to remember that Jedi. Is this something you think about, or is it like too overwhelming to go there?
I think it's a little too overwhelming. It was funny when like early emails from people within the industry or within like the Star Wars world when they're like, "How you doing, Jedi?" And you're like, "Jedi? What the hell? Like,
I know the
Jedi?
philosophy.
Am I a Jedi? Do I know? I don't know how to wake up and brush my teeth and tie my shoes necessarily, Jedi." But it's been very fun to play a character, like you said, that will live on in different ways and also feed other parts of the galaxy and other stories that it's like story stacked on story stacked on story, where things that are happening in 5 years in Star Wars will still be predicated on singular events that happen to Ezra in this case.
I feel like, given everything we've spoken about, your philosophy, mindset, you and Dave Filoni would have had the best conversations just about like force and life. And like, yes, you might be talking about Star Wars, but applying it to life. So anything that, this is also very hard, but anything that springs to mind where you just, you could speak to him for like 20 minutes or however long you get, just about the world.
Dave is so sagacious as a person, and I think it makes so much sense that he's not only a storyteller, but a storyteller in Star Wars. And now that they're sort of handing over the keys of responsibility to him in such a big way, because he is a thinker and a creator before anything, and also a fan of Star Wars. And so the conversations with him were incredible because we always joke when we do panels at conventions and we speak about it. There were times where we would go in to record and we would speak for an hour before we even said the first line,
Wow.
and he could talk on anything and also tie it into, he was so great, especially with me, and he was so helpful in relating it to other things so it made sense to me, because sometimes we can get bogged down by Star Wars is Star Wars is Star Wars, but really no, it is a reflection of the world. And like that's the whole thing in Hamlet, isn't it? Like holding up a mirror to nature. And so while it is happening in Star Wars, it's also what's happening in our lives. And I would tell him all the time, especially because I was a similar age as Ezra and I was growing up and I was a teenager, then I was 20 and then 24. Like some of the lines that they would say, I would tell them, I'm like, I'm going through that right now in my life. And so it's just amazing how he could grab this like existential experience of being a person and put it into this story of Purrgil and Lothcats and Jedi and Sith, and it all still makes sense. And that's that's some of the best stories there are. Like, I love Lord of the Rings, and I think Lord of the Rings is a similar thing about talking about avarice and greed and how we covet things and how to be as a person and what power does to us and the evil of that. That's not unlike Succession or any, like, you can relate it to so many other things or our money hungry tendencies. It just, I don't know, it opens us up to the entire world, and it's sort of like one thing is everything. That's
Agreed. And
very vague, but yeah.
no, I get what you mean. Like when you look at Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, they're using, you can use a cat to, or whatever it's called, a wolf, to explore so many other concepts. And that's what people, and it's not directly in your face. Like that's what I try to do
Absolutely.
with my scripts, one of my movies. If I was just to say like greed and money, it doesn't hit, well, at least for my style, it doesn't hit as much. And I would also love to speak to Dave. If I could like lock him in a room, there's food, water, and a bathroom, just speak to him for a few days would be amazing. Um,
Absolutely.
what was it like saying goodbye to the character?
It was interesting. It was interesting because I have been on other shows that have been canceled after a season or two seasons, and you had these plans of development for where it would go, and you didn't get to, you were like, well, I was setting it up this way. You were seeing this side of him so that I could show you this side and it would pay off later on. And with this, it was interesting because David told us from the beginning how long we would do the show and that the story would go A to Z. And we were so fortunate to tell that story.
Oh, nice.
Anything that was going to happen after, we didn't know. He didn't know necessarily that there would be a live action show or films or any of that, or maybe he did. It was Dave, but there was little whispers in our ear that it might go on or whatever it might be. But for the time being, I've been used to saying bye to a character maybe early or at the right time, whenever it was, and so it was an interesting thing. It was also interesting because it was animated. You weren't going in and putting on the costume every day, because I always find that to be an interesting thing is like when I go in and I put on the wardrobe every day and you have a routine of going through hair and makeup and then doing your vocal warm-ups and your preparation to then enter the world. I didn't go through all of those, which can be a tougher thing to drop, but I did miss, like, you went through it in a sort of expedited way because you'd get to the studio and then you'd go through it and go into it, but it wasn't so tangible necessarily. You know what I mean? The way like putting on a wig or getting a pair of glasses or whatever it might be. But at the same time, I that character was developed out of nothing. It was just an idea to then 5 years of a character and the growth. I felt so connected to him, and I still do. And I think it's like a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I can only imagine, especially people like take like a Mark Rylance playing a Shakespeare character on stage for a year. You're really in that for so long, and saying goodbye to it has got to be very bittersweet. And I think that's what it was. You were just like, I love this character. I don't like certain things about them, and all of that is what makes this such a beautiful experience. And so I loved every moment of it, and I'm so glad that he's been living on and people have enjoyed his arc and where he's going.
And it's very rare. Like, as you said, shows get canceled all the time. And you think, like, when you get this character, we might focus so much on the flaws, but then you're really excited by season 3 or 4, whatever, to, see some of the strengths come out. And very rare, like, why I personally loved it. And, animation doesn't normally, for me, hit the mark in that you got to see a massive character arc. And,
Hmm.
the character that you portrayed went through so much. And that's so brilliant. And, you don't always get that opportunity. It's very exciting. I'm sure you get this a lot, so I apologize. What's it like seeing someone else play a character that you put in so much energy into?
I think it's cool. I haven't seen everything yet, and I feel like such a fraud for that. I haven't seen all of the Ahsoka series yet. But what I have seen, I think it's amazing. I think it's so cool that this character is still sort of moving through the universe in a way. But what I had told Dave on one of the calls towards the end was like, it isn't dissimilar to playing the Duke of Clarence in Richard III. Like, multiple people are going to play it. Like, you don't own Hamlet, and Hamlet is going to be portrayed by other actors and other people in different places. And at the same time, Hamlet's on stage probably 20 times over
Yeah.
on the same night, being played by a man and a woman, and it's just a different experience. And I think that that's something that I sort of like meditated on for a while, and I think it's a beautiful sort of idea.
Great answer. And you don't need to answer this because I don't know the answer. I didn't find anything on this. I would assume you put your hat in the ring because some characters got roles and some didn't. I don't even know how to ask this. What was it? Did you put your hat in the ring? What was kind of that process like?
I mean, I think we were very much so the idea of what it was going to be because Dave had conversations with us about that afterwards, and especially because a lot of us on Rebels have most of our experience and training is in live action, and so it would make sense to carry over. But that, like you said, that wasn't necessarily happening all the time. Like there have been numerous instances where a character was played by one person and then it was portrayed in a film by someone else. And so I think I, I've spoken to other co-stars who maybe they had more expectation with it, but now going full circle to what we were talking about an hour ago, I just never had any expectation of that I would be doing this or wouldn't be doing it. And I thought I would love to carry it on, but if I didn't, then I didn't, and that would be the case. But I think those conversations that we had were sort of hopeful, and then at a certain point, there's so many, like we were speaking about earlier as well, so many people that make decisions on why something goes one way or not the other. And I heard from both sides of that, of like why it made sense that I would do it. And those days I'd be like, okay, cool, I'll prep for it, I'll do it. And then you would hear the other side of that same intangible executive that is like, oh, well, no, of course you're not doing it because of this reason and that reason. And so those days you're like, okay, then I'm not doing it. And so I think that was sort of my relationship with it.
You have a very mature mindset and you're obviously a big meditator. And I'm not going to put myself in your shoes, but I would be meditating extra hard on going through an experience like that. But
Mhm.
congratulations that you still, got the experience to play a character for so long. What we're going to do now to wrap up the podcast is to do a rapid fire segment. So the first thing
Cool.
that springs to mind, but please take your time and I won't comment on it. Oh,
Cool.
actually, you're going to be in is it a movie? SNL 1975?
Yeah, yeah, I just wrapped that. I just wrapped that. Oh boy, I wrapped that 2 weeks ago. I went straight, I flew out to Ireland. I just got back from Ireland like 3 or 4 days ago. So this is the film that I just finished, and that was a whirlwind. It was so fun.
Anything you can tell me about it? Is it coming out soon or because you just wrapped it, it'll probably be
I think
ages?
it actually, usually you have to wait so long, but this one, the editor on it was incredible, and he was out in Atlanta with us. And the way Jason Reitman works, who directed it, is he's going in and pulling clips that night. So he's already shown a lot of us, probably a third of the film, sort of cut and edited. And so that movie is meant to be ready for, I think, I mean, I don't know, but the way they were talking within the next year, which would be sort of amazing. But that was a really fun experience. And because it's a sort of more high profile job, because SNL is such an institution and so many people know a lot of the people we're portraying. Like I play Al Franken, who's still very much so a person in the world, alive and well and of note. There's been a handful of information about the film that's come out, and I think it'll be really exciting to hear. It's another one that, again, can't have expectations for, but some people will love it, and some people will be like, well, no, that person, the way I remember that person was this way. And you just accept it and you roll with everyone. The beauty is everyone, and it's so subjective, has their own opinion on it, and that's the fun of it. And so I can't wait for people to see it because it was such a fun experience shooting, and what I've seen is so beautiful and cool and impressive
Cool.
that I think it should be a fun one when it's out.
It looks amazing from what I've read and the cast, big cast. Congratulations on getting it. Um, okay, now some of the rapid fire. I'll do some of mine and some of the guests. Um,
Cool.
whatever springs to mind. What has Dave Filoni taught you about the Force?
That everyone has it.
What's your favorite holiday destination and why?
Whoa. Anywhere by a large body of water and some sunshine.
What does meditation do for your soul?
Feeds it. It keeps it sane. It brings peace.
Next big dream or goal?
I would love to have a story that I've written and possibly direct be be told and actualized and be experienced by other people so that they could sort of jump into the world that's in my head.
We'll put it out to the universe. It's already happening. It's working in your favor. If you could have any superhero power, what would it be and why?
Oh boy. Um, the sort of blowhardy answer but I do love it is like to maybe have like supreme empathy, like just be able to really feel what everyone's feeling and try to be of service to that in some way, because I think sometimes there's miscommunication along the way where it's like you meant to do well by someone and in turn you actually did the opposite because you didn't really understand what someone needed or was experiencing at a certain time. But then the more fun answer that I probably said as a kid more often is teleportation. I think getting on flights and traveling places is a bit of a nuisance, but once you're there, it's amazing. So if I could just snap my fingers and be somewhere, that'd be incredible.
Well, I know I said I wouldn't comment, but it sounds like you do have the extreme empathy because you're able to reflect even when something hasn't gone quite to plan communication-wise, you're able to reflect on it. So perhaps you do have it. Last two, any advice you want to give to people who want to try something different or new, but perhaps a bit fearful of doing so?
Yeah, for sure. Don't take no or rejection as an answer or sort of like a final stopping period. Like anything you're going to try, you're going to fail at. So like just developing a sort of relationship with failure, because then you're encouraged to try new things. And even if it doesn't work out right away, keep going and just keep pursuing it if you enjoy it. So like go after what you love and don't stop at the first sign of rejection or an obstacle.
I love that. Thank you. You did my job for me. Brilliant. Before I ask how people can follow you and keep up to date with you, what is the one question I should have asked you?
Oh, that's such a good one. That's such a good one. How am I feeling?
How are you feeling?
I feel good. I feel so much better after this conversation. It's always nice I feel like maybe I didn't reach certain depths in the last week that I have just speaking to you, because it's sort of introspection of looking into parts of my life or just like how I'm perceived or my voice coming out of my chest. And so I think I feel even better now than I did before, but I feel very optimistic and happy. Yeah.
Brilliant, and thank you for the compliment. Before we go, how can people follow you and keep up to date with you?
I'm not too active on social media, which I have a love-hate relationship with it. I should be more so, but on Instagram, I'm Taylor Gray at Taylor Gray 3, and then I have a Twitter that I don't go on nearly enough, and that's at I am Taylor Gray. And then um, yeah, I like to write things and post them into different places, and I think watching films and shows that we've put out is some glimpse into keeping up with us, because that's sort of where we're at emotionally at certain points. So that's always so sweet. But I love messages that come in from people who either seen work I've done or have just like come across me on social media or heard a conversation with you. And yeah, I'm on Instagram and Twitter, letterboxed as well. My letterbox is I think my name is L. Tigre Rabioso, which is just a ridiculous name. But I love being on there too, because just like it's all about film and it's sort of a social media for film.
Amazing. I'll put those in the episode notes. I might get you to write it out for me, that last one, so
You
people
got
can
it.
copy it. Thank you so much. I love your outlook. You are very contagious and empowering, and I got so much out of this. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation, and you're a fantastic conversationalist. So thank you very much.
I love how Taylor is able to look deep within himself and ask himself the big, tough questions. This can be really difficult for us, as often ego or fear tends to jump in. Taylor encourages us to search deep and look within. Although it can be scary, but being honest with ourselves will overall improve our quality of life and lead us to better ways. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. Introspection is essential. You must pass through the clouds before you can fly above them. Shimrad Rajchandra. Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.